Good day, everyone. This is Dr. Soper here, and today I'll be discussing the 10th topic in our series of lessons on information privacy and security, with today's topic focusing on forgeries and digital identities. A forgery is a counterfeit version of an item or an artifact that has been created for purposes of committing fraud or deceit. As more and more of our daily tasks and communications incorporate interactions with information technologies, it is important to realize that it is not only real-world items and artifacts that can be forged. On the contrary, digital artifacts can be forged as well. The term digital artifact is being used here not in the sense of an archaeological artifact, but rather in the sense of something that is produced as a result of interactions with information systems. Malicious parties can create forgeries of many different types of digital artifacts. In fact, one of the distinguishing characteristics of many digital artifacts is the ease with which they can be replicated. For example, an exact bit-for-bit copy of virtually any digital file can be made at almost no cost and with perfect fidelity. In the current era of internet technologies and the World Wide Web, common targets for digital forgeries include artifacts such as email messages and websites. Other digital artifacts, such as software programs, are also common targets for digital forgeries, and with the rise of mobile computing, mobile apps have become targets for digital forgery as well. A forged email message is a message that is sent to the recipient by a malicious party with the goal of convincing the recipient that the message comes from a legitimate source. In terms of sheer numbers, forged email messages are by far the commonest example of forgery among digital artifacts. It is unfortunately not unusual for people to receive multiple forged email messages in their inboxes each and every day. Malicious parties often forge email messages for the purpose of gathering private information from the recipient, or for the purpose of achieving some sort of financial gain. Several common methods are used by malicious parties who wish to forge email messages. Just like standard postal mail, email messaging is largely insecure, and this makes it very easy for a malicious party to masquerade as a legitimate party. Consider, for example, that you could send a message through the standard postal mail using whatever return address you like, thus masquerading as another person or another entity. In a similar fashion, the header data for an email message which identifies the name and email address of the sender can be easily spoofed, thus making the message appear to have originated from whichever entity has been chosen by the malicious party. Email messages are often forged for purposes of conducting a phishing attack, wherein a malicious party fraudulently attempts to acquire private information from the message recipient by posing as a legitimate entity. Consider this example, which is an email message that was sent to my email account. The message states that it is from Blizzard Entertainment, and it appears to have originated from a legitimate email address. The message opens by informing me that we have already noted that you are trying to sell your personal Battle.net account. Since I do not have a Battle.net account, I can immediately recognize that this message is a forgery. Nevertheless, millions of people do have Battle.net accounts and might be alarmed by receiving such a message. The message continues, "It will be ongoing for further investigation by Blizzard Entertainment's employees. If you not wish to get your account suspended, you immediately need verify your account ownership." The poor quality of the English grammar in this message leads me to immediately suspect that the message is a forgery. However, many Battle.net account holders are not native English speakers and may therefore still be fooled by this message. Next, the message instructs me to visit what appears to be a legitimate Blizzard-owned website, where I would be asked to log in. The supposedly legitimate URL, however, is just a ruse, since the link actually points to a different URL. Note that the actual URL uses a .tk domain name, which belongs to the tiny territory of Tokelau off of the coast of New Zealand. I find it difficult to believe that a large company such as Blizzard Entertainment would maintain a server in a territory that has a population of fewer than 1,500 people. Further, if we examine the message header information, which is usually hidden for the convenience of the recipient, we can inspect the IP address of the server from which the message truly originated. Performing an IP geolocation lookup reveals that the server which sent this message is actually located in Beijing in mainland China, which reasonably explains the grammatical errors in the forged email. Unfortunately, a legitimate Battle.net account holder who followed the instructions in the message would have divulged their login credentials to a malicious party. In addition to forged messages and phishing scams, email also creates several other threats to information privacy and security. Most notable among these other threats is spam, which refers to unsolicited email messages that are sent indiscriminately to large numbers of recipients, typically for purposes of advertising or selling products or services. Spam has been a pervasive phenomenon for several decades and is commonly estimated to account for approximately 85 to 90% of all email messages transmitted over the Internet. As with viruses and other forms of malware, battling spam is a constant game of back and forth, with anti-spam companies constantly refining spam filters to block new spam threats, and spammers constantly developing new techniques to avoid spam filters. One interesting strategy that has been proposed to prevent spam is to implement an email postage fee. Currently, spammers can send millions of spam email messages each day at essentially no cost. Even if the vast majority of these messages produce no revenue, spamming is still financially viable under the current system. If, however, a small postage fee of perhaps 1 cent per email message were imposed, it is believed that most spam would stop immediately. Consider, for example, a spammer who currently sends 10 million spam messages per day at essentially no cost. Under the proposed email postage system, the spammer would be required to pay $100,000 per day if she wanted to send 10 million spam messages. For most spammers, even a very small email postage fee would thus make spamming no longer financially worthwhile. In addition to creating forged email messages, malicious parties also often create forgeries of real websites, software programs, and mobile apps. With respect to forged websites, the objective of a malicious party in creating such a website is typically to commit fraud in the form of deceptively gathering legitimate users' private information or login credentials. Because of the nature of web standards and content, creating a counterfeit version of an existing website is a remarkably easy task. A malicious party can easily obtain the HTML source code for an existing website and can just as easily download and save copies of all of the images and other multimedia that are used on the real website. With these resources in hand, creating a forged version of the real website is as easy as uploading the HTML source code and multimedia elements to a malicious web server. With a few simple modifications, the forged website can be made to gather and store private data or login credentials from legitimate users who have been fooled by the authentic look and feel of the forged website. Note that forged websites are often used in conjunction with forged email messages. Continuing the example from our discussion of forged email, if a legitimate user of battle.net were to have clicked on the embedded link within the forged email message, she would have been directed to this forged website. The malicious party who created the website has clearly downloaded the HTML source code and multimedia content from a legitimate battle.net website in order to ensure that the forgery is convincing. Images, logos, fonts, and colors exactly match the legitimate website. A legitimate user who entered her login credentials on this forged website, however, would almost certainly find her real battle.net account to be quickly compromised or stolen by the malicious party. Just as with forged websites, malicious parties can create forgeries of real software programs or mobile apps as well. Such forgeries typically go to great lengths in order to appear to have originated from well-known or reputable organizations such as Microsoft or Apple. Users who are fooled into installing forged software or mobile apps and granting those programs the privileges that they request will likely find themselves exposed to one or more substantial security threats. Specifically, forged software and mobile apps are commonly used as vectors for the installation of malware, to gather or steal private user data, or for the purpose of turning the user's computing device into a bot or zombie that can be controlled remotely by a malicious party. As we saw in our discussion of forged email messages, websites, software programs, and mobile apps, forgeries of digital artifacts are often created for purposes of malicious impersonation. Malicious impersonation is the act of pretending to be another person or entity for the purpose of committing fraud. The commonest objective of a malicious party in committing this sort of fraud is to gather personal information with a view toward achieving some sort of financial gain. In order to prevent digital forgeries and impersonation, mechanisms are needed that will allow for the realization of 4 specific goals. First, a way is needed of proving that a digital artifact is genuine and has not been forged. Second, a way is needed of authenticating the creator or sender of a digital artifact such that the user or recipient can verify the legitimacy of the artifact's source. Third, a way is needed of ensuring that the creator or sender of a digital artifact cannot plausibly deny having created or sent the artifact. In this way, it would always be possible to identify the true source of a digital artifact. Finally, a way is needed of proving that a legitimate digital artifact has not been modified or altered by a malicious party. Together, achieving these 4 goals can effectively prevent digital forgeries and impersonation. One of the most critical objectives that must be achieved if we hope to avoid digital forgeries and impersonation is the ability to ensure the integrity of digital artifacts. More specifically, a mechanism is needed through which we can guarantee that a digital artifact is wholly intact and has not been clandestinely manipulated or modified by a malicious party. As with so many other information privacy and security issues, the primary tool that we have available for protecting the integrity of digital artifacts is cryptography. Using cryptography to protect the integrity of a digital artifact is simply a modern-day extension of an ancient idea. Consider, for example, that wax seals were used for centuries in order to ensure the integrity of written messages. The author of a written message would affix a wax seal to the physical document. If anyone other than the intended recipient were to attempt to read or modify the document, then the wax seal would break, thus alerting the recipient to the fact that the integrity of the message had been violated. Similarly, cryptographic seals can be used in the modern era to ensure the integrity of digital artifacts. When cryptographic seals are used correctly, any changes or modifications that are made to a digital artifact after the seal has been computed can be readily detected. In order to create a cryptographic seal for the purpose of protecting the integrity of a digital artifact, we can compute a cryptographic hash function. A cryptographic hash function, which is also known as a checksum or as a message digest, is a function that runs an arbitrarily large block of data through a cryptographic algorithm and returns a fixed length string which serves as a unique signature for the input data. Changing even a single bit of the input data yields a very different checksum value, and as such, any clandestine modifications that are made to the input data can be easily detected. More formally, we can think about cryptographic seals as a problem in which we want to send a message containing n bits such that the receiver is able to verify that the integrity of the message has not been compromised. The solution to this problem is to send a message containing n plus k bits, where the n bits are the original message and the additional k bits are the checksum or message digest that results from running the complete n-bit message through a cryptographic hash function. Protecting the integrity of a digital artifact is necessary but insufficient for preventing digital forgeries and impersonation. Although ensuring integrity is critical, we still need to achieve 3 additional objectives if we hope to prevent digital forgeries and impersonation. First, we need to be able to prove that the digital artifact has not been forged. Put another way, we need a way of proving that the digital artifact is genuine. Second, we need to be able to authenticate the person who created or sent the digital artifact. That is, we need a way of establishing the true identity of the creator or sender of the artifact. Finally, we need to be able to ensure non-repudiation with respect to the sender or creator. That is, we need a way of guaranteeing that the true sender or creator of a digital artifact cannot plausibly claim that someone else sent or created the artifact. Beyond providing a mechanism for ensuring the integrity of digital artifacts, a digital signature can provide us with all of these additional protections. In order for a digital signature to be tenable, it must minimally be unforgeable, authenticable, and non-repudiable. With respect to unforgeability, only the signer should be able to produce the combination of the digital artifact and digital signature. With respect to authenticability, the receiver should be able to independently verify that the signature truly originated from the signer. Finally, with respect to non-repudiability, the digital signature must be indelible. Just like a real signature on a paper check or a contract, the digital signature must be permanently affixed to the digital artifact. In addition to the 3 required properties of digital signatures, there are also 2 further properties of digital signatures that are considered highly desirable. First, an ideal digital signature would be unalterable. That is, once a digital artifact has been signed by its creator, the combination of the digital artifact and the digital signature should not be able to be undetectably altered. Second, an ideal digital signature would not be resealable. Put another way, once the combination of the digital artifact and the digital signature has been opened by the recipient, it should not be possible for the recipient to make the package appear as if it had not been opened. One of the extremely useful functions to which public key encryption can be applied is to serve as a basis for digital signatures. When a sender wishes to securely transmit a digital artifact to a receiver, she can first encrypt the digital artifact with the receiver's public key. Next, the sender takes the encrypted artifact from the first step and encrypts the artifact once more, this time using her own private key. Note that this second layer of encryption serves as a digital signature because the only way in which the outer layer of encryption can be removed using the sender's public key is if that encryption was applied using the sender's private key. Upon receiving the doubly encrypted digital artifact, the receiver removes the outer layer of encryption using the sender's public key. Again, this step authenticates the sender, since only the sender could have encrypted the digital artifact with her private key. After removing the outer layer of encryption, the receiver then decrypts the inner layer of encryption using his own private key. Since the digital artifact was first encrypted using the receiver's public key, only the receiver is able to decrypt the inner layer of encryption. Using public key encryption for digital signatures provides several security benefits. First, the digital signature does not reveal the signer's private key. Second, only the legitimate owner of a private key is able to produce a valid signature. Third, the receiver of the signed digital artifact is able to independently verify the legitimacy of the signature. Finally, any modifications that have been surreptitiously made to a signed message can be detected. I would like to take a few moments to discuss trust. Most human interactions involve trust in some way, and indeed, modern civilization could not exist without trust. Perhaps the oldest type of trust is trust between individuals, but there are other types of trust as well. Consider that trust can exist between an individual and an organization. For example, do you trust your bank to take care of your money? Do you trust the post office to properly handle your mail? Do you trust your internet service provider? Further, trust can also exist between organizations. Does your organization, for example, trust its supply chain partners? Does your organization trust its utility providers, such as the electric company or the water company? Interestingly, trust can also exist between individuals and objects or artifacts. For example, do you trust your alarm clock? Do you trust traffic lights? Do you trust your internet browser software? As can be seen through these examples, trust plays a surprisingly important role in our daily lives. It is also important to realize that trust comes in degrees. For example, you may trust two people, but perhaps you trust one of them more than the other. Put another way, trust is rarely a binary true-false concept. For example, when you say that you trust your bank, does that mean that you have full, complete, 100% trust in them? Probably not. Trust, of course, is not constrained to the real world, but rather has an important role in the digital world as well. Trust is, in fact, ubiquitous in both social and digital systems. Most of us know through personal experience that blindly trusting another person whom we do not know can be risky. Indeed, trust without evidence or verification can sometimes be disastrous. The same concepts apply to interactions between humans and computers, and to interactions between computers and other computers. There are 4 different ways in which we can build trust, namely, through familiarity, through experience, through reputation, or through affiliation. With respect to familiarity, trust between individuals can be predicated on seeing a familiar face, hearing a familiar voice, seeing familiar handwriting, and so forth. Familiarity may also serve to build trust with an organization, such as through seeing a familiar company name or logo, hearing a story of corporate goodwill, and so forth. Familiarity can also help to establish trust in an artifact, such as when the artifact has a familiar manufacturer, uses familiar components that are known to be of high quality, and so forth. Beyond familiarity, experience also plays a critical role in building trust. Trust is commonly established through first-hand experience with an individual, organization, or artifact. Good experiences tend to cause trust to grow, while bad experiences tend to cause distrust to grow. Next, reputational indicators can be used as a basis for building trust. If an individual, organization, or artifact has a good reputation, then it may be reasonable to be trusting toward that individual, organization, or artifact, even without having any first-hand experience. Note that reputation can also be established through credentials. If, for example, you received medical advice from 2 strangers, and one of those strangers gave you a business card which showed that she was a medical doctor, then you would likely be more willing to trust her advice than the advice of the other stranger. Finally, trust can be established through affiliation. If a known individual, organization, or artifact is affiliated with an unknown individual, organization, or artifact, feelings of trust or distrust toward the known entity can be transferred to the affiliated unknown entity. Aside from understanding how trust can be established, it is also important to understand how trust can be verified. First, verification of trust can be accomplished by verifying experience. An objective consideration of one's own experiences with an individual, organization, or artifact can verify judgments of trustworthiness. Second, trust can be verified through the verification of reputation. This may involve validation of evidence or other credentials, consideration or evaluation of the opinions of others, for example, in the form of online reviews, or through consultation with sources of reputational indicators such as the Better Business Bureau. Finally, Verification of trust can be accomplished by verifying affiliation details. For example, we might check the reputation or credentials of the known entity with which the unknown entity is affiliated. Or we may simply be able to ask the known entity about the unknown entity. Just like in the real world, common, efficient, and effective mechanisms are needed to establish and facilitate trust in online relationships and transactions. Because so many online transactions and interactions take place among unknown parties, a reliable entity may be needed to assume risks or vouch for an unknown party in order to make the situation more comfortable for everyone involved. Just like in the real world, a trusted third party often forms the basis for trust in online relationships. When two parties do not know each other, but nevertheless need to interact, they can establish trust by way of a common, respected entity. Consider, for example, the social relationships shown in this figure. Each box in the figure represents a person, and each line in the figure represents a current relationship between two people. Now imagine that Rajesh happens to meet Sheldon. Sheldon claims that he works for the same organization as Rajesh. Based upon the existing set of social relationships, Rajesh can verify Sheldon's claim through a common, respected individual. Specifically, Rajesh knows Howard, who knows Leslie, while Sheldon knows Leonard, who knows Leslie. Rajesh can therefore verify Sheldon's claim by relying upon Leslie, who serves as a common link between Rajesh's friend Howard and Sheldon's friend Leonard. A conceptually similar process can be used for establishing trust in online relationships. A digital certificate, which is also sometimes referred to as an identity certificate or a public key certificate, is an electronic artifact that uses a digital signature in order to indelibly and dependably connect a specific public key value to the identity of a specific subject, such as an individual or an organization. Put another way, a digital certificate can provide a guarantee that a particular public key value is truly and genuinely associated with a specific person or organization. Digital certificates can therefore be used to authenticate an online identity, and thus serve as a foundation for establishing trust in online relationships between parties who do not otherwise know each other personally. Consider, for example, the figure shown here, which depicts a conceptual representation of a digital certificate for a person named Priya. The digital certificate contains several elements, including a unique certificate serial number, identity information for the subject of the certificate, such as her name, Priya's public key, and the digital signature of a trusted third party. The signature of the trusted third party is used to certify that the public key contained in the digital certificate actually belongs to Priya. In order for a digital certificate to provide a solid foundation for establishing trust in online relationships between parties who do not otherwise know each other, the digital certificate must be issued by a trusted third party. In many ways, a digital certificate is similar to a passport. The passport contains identity information for a specific real-world person, and the fact that the passport is issued by the government of a country provides an independent basis for trusting that the information it contains is genuine. In this analogy, the government of the issuing country is acting as a trusted third party who is guaranteeing the accuracy of the information contained in the passport. For digital interactions, a certificate authority is an entity that issues digital certificates for use by other parties, thus acting as a trusted third party. Large organizations or governments may have their own certificate authorities that are responsible for issuing certificates for people or systems within the organization. For smaller organizations or individuals, however, there are a small number of well-known commercial certificate authorities that issue digital certificates. Some of the commonest of these certificate authorities are VeriSign, GeoTrust, and GoDaddy. In order for a digital certification scheme to be tenable on a wide scale, several specific conditions must be met. First, digital certificates can be used to verify online identities if any interested party can read a given digital certificate and determine both the entity that the certificate represents and that entity's public key. Second, any interested party must be able to independently determine whether the certificate is recent and up to date. Third, any interested party must be able to verify that the certificate truly originated from the certificate authority and that the certificate is authentic. For this purpose, the certificate authority encrypts the digital certificate with its own private key. Anyone who receives a digital certificate can therefore verify its authenticity by decrypting the certificate using the certificate authority's public key. Finally, only the certificate authority should be able to create and update a digital certificate. With these four characteristics in place, digital certificates can be used as a solid basis for establishing online trust between entities who do not otherwise know each other, and for whom establishing trust would otherwise be prohibitively difficult or time-consuming. Well, my friends, thus ends our overview of forgeries and digital identities. I hope that you learned something interesting in this lesson, and until next time, have a great day.